Hey pen friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Devin, and for today's video, I wanted to reflect and share some of the fountain pen mistakes that I made very early on when I got into the hobby. I hope that by sharing some of these mishaps, flops, and misconceptions, that I can save you a little bit of heartache that I experienced when I first got into the hobby. By far, one of the biggest mistakes that I made in my fountain pen journey is something that I've kind of shared on my channel before, and that is not starting sooner. I was so intimidated and had developed this ridiculous notion that fountain pens were too complicated and that it was going to cause me more despair than it was joy. All of these things turned out to be false when I actually picked up my first fountain pen. Yes, there are some mechanics to it that are a little bit different from using a regular pen, but the education and information that's out there and available pretty much shuts down that excuse immediately. I think all of us fountain pen enthusiasts can agree that our community is a special one, and that if you have a question, just reach out and someone will be more than happy to give you either information or their own personal experience and opinion. If you are able to connect with someone in person, that's even better because they can actually physically show you a fountain pen and let you try it and maybe show you some parts of it that may be difficult to capture in video and on camera. And it'll give you the opportunity to ask some questions in real time. So whether it be through a friend that you know, a friend of a friend, a person that you connect with through the internet, like in the fountain pen network or other like forum, or even going into a store. If you have a physical fountain pen store, that is an amazing resource that you should definitely take advantage of because the people there know their stuff and they would be more than happy to just pass on the knowledge. Don't feel pressured about like having to buy anything. I think just being able to share what fountain pens are all about is really the joy for a lot of users in this community. The second mistake that I made when I first got into the fountain pen hobby was not understanding how a fountain pen works. Again, there are so many resources out there and I was watching a lot of YouTube videos, but essentially what I'm referring to is my very first fountain pen experience. I had purchased a fountain pen from Daiso, and that one is one that I've talked about many times on my channel, so if you haven't seen those videos, I will link them off in the description box below. Spoiler alert, I ended up loving the fountain pen, but initially I experienced massive disappointment, and the reason why was because I didn't know that you put the cartridge in the fountain pen and you kind of have to let it do its thing. I expected once I popped the cartridge into the pen that I would be able to use it right away, and I was getting so frustrated. Like, why won't this fountain pen work? Is it because it's so cheap and it's from Daiso? I only paid $1.50, so is this, one of those instances where you get what you pay for? I kind of chucked it aside and didn't look at it for the longest time, all because I had built up this notion that fountain pens were the end all be all, and now I understand that for me they are, but you have to understand how they work. At that time when I was trying to scribble on my page and no ink was flowing from it, I was just so frustrated, and I didn't understand that maybe if I capped it, put it upside down in one of my jars along with my other pens, that in a little while I would be able to use it and experience something glorious. I think if you're first getting into the fountain pen hobby, you have to understand that there is a little bit of a learning curve and you may need to exercise a little bit more patience to reap the benefits of using fountain pens. I think the thing that we need to remember here is that we all make mistakes. Mistakes are inevitable, but we can learn from them. And I hope that you guys can learn from this mistake that I made initially, which is not using good quality fountain pen paper. Let's just get this out in the open. Not all paper is created equal, and that took me a long time to learn. I was coming from the world of gel pens, roller balls, and ballpoints, so a lot of my notebooks that I had amassed over this time were not really suitable for the wetness and the flow of these fountain pens that I had come to love and enjoy. Now, I will say that if you're using an extra fine or a fine nibbed fountain pen, you can kind of get away with using cheaper paper. It's not the most optimal situation or pairing, but you know, if push comes to shove, you can get by with it. I know that if you're a student, an extra fine or a fine nib will probably serve you the best because you are maybe using handouts from the class, or you're going through high volumes of paper. So investing in something in higher quality is not necessarily feasible at this time. So depending on how you plan on using your fountain pens can determine the quality of paper that you choose. For me personally, I'm doing a lot of planning and a lot of journaling. So I feel like in my particular case, it wouldn't hurt to use better quality fountain pen paper. Again, I have quite a few notebooks that have lower quality paper that I either want to work towards or just I'm not ready to let go of. So at the moment, I am reserving my more fountain pen friendly paper for when I do swatches here on my channel, and my current planner seems to fare well with fountain pens. Again, I want to be sensitive to the fact that everyone has different needs and different budgets, but if you are able to, I do think it's worth splurging on some fountain pen friendly that you can enjoy for yourself. This next mistake speaks to the backup culture, and I don't know if it's as prevalent in the fountain pen community as it is in the beauty community, but what I've experienced with engaging in the beauty community is that there was a time, I don't know if people still do it, but basically if there was like a limited edition product and you really liked it, you would buy multiples of it. That way, once you finished using the first one, you would have a backup. So when I got into the fountain pen hobby, I kind of had a relapse, if you will, back to that backup mentality. I bought backups of ink that I thought I would use. The problem for me personally was that this was still very early on in my fountain pen journey, and I was still experiencing what kind of inks I liked and what kind of inks I didn't like. Now, I think that this can be all fine and well if you know that realistically you're going to use that product and that you are going to go through it in a certain amount of time. I just don't think that it served me well to be investing my money on multiples of ink when there was so many different inks that I could put that money towards, or possibly even a new pen. I don't know. I look back and think it's so silly that I thought like, yes, I need like 2-3 bottles of this special edition ink because it's gonna go away and I really like it. But at that point I had only tried maybe 5-6 inks, just a handful of different varieties and properties. So it's not an ink that I use a lot now because I'm too busy trying new things. If I could just go back and tell myself like, hey, you don't need to do that. Like, it's unnecessary. I think I would have saved myself a lot of trouble and saved my wallet, from some pain as well. With so many different options out there, I think it's a little naive for beginners in the hobby to say that they know exactly what they like and what they don't like. Yes, you probably have a pretty good inkling of what is going to suit your needs and fulfill like that part of your heart that says, yes, this is wonderful. But that was a big mistake that I personally made early on, which was disregarding different pens and inks before I even had a chance to experience them. There were definitely some instances that I experienced and I was like, yeah, I was right. Like, this isn't for me. But an example of this would be piston filling pens. I first saw piston filling pens and thought like, who needs that frustration? Who needs that extra work when you're cleaning, like twisting the knob and untwisting the knob? And that seems so silly and so simple now, but I kind of just was like, nope, I'm only doing cartridge converters because you can pop the ink cartridge out, you can flush it with a syringe, and then you can flush out the pen with, one of those like syringe not a syringe, like a bulb syringe, that's what I'm trying to say, or like those plant watering things that I personally use from Daiso. That was so ridiculous of me because I love piston filling pens. They're actually not as bothersome to clean as I thought. That aside, I mean, we all know that I'm not the biggest fan of having to clean out my pens, but it's kind of like equal in terms of the enjoyment there. I also completely dismissed clear demonstrator fountain pens. I don't know like where I developed these opinions or how I developed these strong aversions so early on, but I was like, nope, it's not for me. Like it looks weird, but I love how clear demonstrator fountain pens look. I think the aesthetic is so pleasing, especially to someone who's just getting into the hobby, because it really shows you what is going on inside your pen. And I mean, even now, a year later into my fountain pen journey, it's something that I very much continue to enjoy. On the flip side, I thought I had purchased pens that like I was so confident that I would absolutely love and adore and use every single day, but those pens are just sitting in their cases collecting dust. And I don't know, I might feel differently in a couple months. It might make it back into my rotation, but in summary, what I'm trying to say is don't knock it until you try it. Some of these mistakes were a little bit more disheartening than others, but the important thing is that I'm still here enjoying my fountain pens and learning so much every day, whether it's through the community, whether it's engaging with my own pen and ink collection. So that continues to be one of the biggest joys for me, is continuing to learn, grow, and evolve alongside all of my pen friends. I would love to hear from you. What was one of the biggest mistakes that you made when you first got into fountain pens? Or what was the biggest lesson that you learned from using fountain pens? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and feel free to share it with a pen friend who you think might also enjoy it. Don't forget to subscribe and to turn on those notifications, that way you don't miss any of my videos. For more pen and paper goodness, you guys can connect with me over on Instagram. My username is @DevinLu, that's DEVNNLUU. I also started to post more stationery stuff on TikTok, so my username is the same @DevinLu, that's DEVNNLUU. I do my best to upload here every Thursday evening, so please take care until then. Feel free to enjoy these two videos linked here on the screen. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.